Lesson 6, Rational Numbers on the Number Line. So the opening exercise says write the decimal equivalent of each fraction. So it starts off with 1/2, which we know is 0.5 in decimal form. For number 2, or II, it says 4/5. So if I scroll down here, I know that if I don't have a fraction that I already know the decimal for, I can change it into a bigger fraction, one that works with tenths or hundredths, because that matches my decimal place values. So if I want to take 4/5, I know that I can multiply both of those by 2, and I get 8/10. Now tenths I know how to write in decimal form because that uses a decimal place value. So that would be 0.8. Okay, and then the third one is 6 7/10. So the fraction is already nice and neat for us in tenths, but it is using a whole number. So that is going to be written as 6.7 or 6 7/10. So if we scroll down here, it's giving us just the opposite. So it says 42 hundredths, which I know I can represent as 42 over 100. Okay, and I'd like you to go ahead and try I and I on your own. When you finish with those, go ahead and move on to the next page. So here we have example 1 on graphing rational numbers. So I want to explain the drawing here at the bottom first before we go into those two paragraphs. So it says locate and graph the number 3/10 and its opposite on the number line. So we have a number line that is marked from -1 to 0 to 1. And we both know that 3/10 is not quite a whole number, so it's going to be somewhere between 0 and 1. So the first two paragraphs are basically telling you how to segment this line, because we have a big space between 0 and 1, and we want to make sure that 3/10 is graphed accurately. So I would take the space from 0 to 1, which is right here, and I'm going to split that up into 10 equal segments as best as I can. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so that I can get these 10 segments in there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the last segment there. Okay, and because I'm here, I'm going to match those segments on the other side as best as I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I'm going to zoom back out here. Go ahead and do that in your notebook as best as you can. And now we have to locate and graph the number 3/10 and its opposite. So because I don't have room to label all of these, I know that because I split it up into tenths, after 0 we have 1/3 or 1/10, 2/10, and then 3/10, which would be located right here, and I'm going to mark it on the number line. It also says to mark its opposite on the number line. And since we know that the negative numbers to the left side of 0 are just sort of a mirror image, I'm going to start from 0, and I'm going to count 1/10, 2/10, and then 3/10 would be here, but because it's on the left side of 0, we know it's going to be -3/10. Okay, so let's try this example on exercise 1. Use what you know about the point -7/4 and its opposite to graph these points on the number line below. The fraction -7/4 is located between which two consecutive integers? Explain your reasoning. Okay, so there's two things that we have to do here. We have to graph both of the points, the opposite and the one that they gave us, -7/4, and we have to explain what two consecutive integers it's sitting in between. So first I say let's graph the number. So I'm going to try to find the center of this number line. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So it looks like I have to count in 8 spaces to get to the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we have the middle. So we have 0 here. And then it looks like, because I have a denominator of 4, I'm working with fourths. So each one of these marks would be 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and so on. So I'm going to mark every other. I'll just mark all of them. I'll just zoom in. So we have 1/4, 2/4. Okay, so it looks like it goes all the way up to 8/4, and now I'm going to match that on the other side. Okay, so now you can see all of my hash marks are labeled, and they are all counting by 1/4. And I just want to point out that if I were to look at which one of these might be whole numbers, I can see that 4/4, which is located right here, and -4/4, those would be representing +1 and -1. And I also know that 8/4 and -8/4 would represent 2 and -2. So we're just writing them as a fraction in this situation because we counted by 1/4, but I do want to point out that they are whole numbers or integers that we can use here in this problem. So it says for us to graph -7/4 and its opposite. So I'm going to graph -7/4, which is over here, and its opposite, which we know is the same exact distance from 0, but on the other side, so that would be at +7/4. And it says here on the number line, each segment will have an equal length of 1/4, and the fraction 7/4 and -7/4 is located between blank and blank. So over here we're focusing on -7/4, which on our number line is located between -1 and -2, which we understand because on the positive number line on the right side, 7/4 is sitting between 1 and 2. We can see it's right here, and that's sitting between 1 and 2. So it would only make sense that on the negative side, it's sitting between those opposites. It's sitting between -1 and -2. So we can try to explain that in the best way that we can. So -7/4 is between -1 and -2 because its opposite is between 1 and 2, which are the opposite of -1 and -2. So we can just kind of explain it by using our opposites. When you have that copied down in your notebook, go ahead and go on to the next page. And it says example 2, rational numbers and the real world. So I'm reading along here. It says the water level of the lake rose 1.25 or 1 in 2500 feet after it rained. Answer the following questions using the number line below. So letter A says write a rational number to represent the situation. So if it rose 1.25 feet, then my rational number would be positive 1.25. And letter B says, what two integers is 1.25 between on a number line? So, well, I know because it's 1 and some, right? There's a little fraction piece there. I know that it's going to lie between 1 and 2 on the number line because it's a little bigger than 1, but it's less than 2 still. Letter C says write the length of each segment on the number line as a decimal and a fraction. So that's asking us to look over here where they have the number line and it's segmented into little sections between the 0 and the 1 and the 1 and the 2. So if I look here, I can count from 0, there's 1, 2, 3, and then the whole number 1. So it seems like it's actually cut up into 1/4, right? So I know that each line segment represents 1/4, and as a decimal, I know that represents as 0.25. So letter D says, what will be the water level after it rained? Graph the point on the number line. So the original question or the original situation said that it rose 1.25 feet after it rained. So on my number line, if I'm starting at 0, I would need to graph the point 1.25. So I go up to 1, and then I know if each hash mark is 25 hundredths, it's going to be along that first hash mark after the 1. And my water level would be at 1.25. So the next question of E, let me keep the number line visible. After 2 weeks have passed, the water level of the lake is now the opposite of the water level when it rained. What will be the new water level? Graph the point on the number line. So because we know how to find the opposite, it's going to be at negative 1.25 on the number line. And if I wanted to graph that, I'm going to go that same distance that I went before. So if I were to count back, I could make my jumps there. And it looks like that's 5 jumps on that side. So I'm going to start at 0 and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my dot would go right after the negative 1 below on the number line. So letter F says, state a rational number that is not an integer whose value is less than 1.25 and describe its location between 2 consecutive integers on the number line. So it says, give a number that is that's not an integer whose value is less than 1.25. So if I'm going lower than 1.25, but it can't be 1, I can give the number 1.1, right? So we know that's 1/10 or 10 hundredths, which is going to be less than 1.25, and then that still falls between the numbers 1 and 2 on the number line. So let's take a look at your problem set. For these, I'd like you to go ahead and do number 1, including A, B, C, and D, and then go ahead and skip down to number 4 and make sure that you follow all the directions for that question. And when you are done, go ahead and fill out the question in Google Classroom and show me the work from your notebook. If you have any questions, please let me know.